Hello, this is Laurence Galian, and this is The Place Inside. I am your host, and we welcome you to the next chapter of The Place Inside. Today we're going to be talking about some of the insights from Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso, as told to us by his son, Philip J. Corso, Jr., as well as UFO magazine publisher William Burns. As usual, we will go off in many directions. First, some have asked me, how do I obtain MP3 copies of these podcasts? Download something called ATube Catcher. Information on their website will be put in the video description below. However, for those who do not have this video, I will describe ATube Catcher. ATube is spelled all one word, A-T-U-B-E. Again, A-T-U-B-E, second word, catcher, C-A-T-C-H-E-R. It is 100% freeware, virus-free, checked out by my Norton 360. I've run it for the last 2 years now with absolutely no problem. You can go to atube-catcher.dsnetwb.com/video/ and download the latest version, or just go to Google and Google ATube Catcher. It allows you to save videos as videos or MP3s. It's an extremely powerful program and very versatile, since you can save all of what you're working on or recording in a wide variety of formats that you can choose yourself. It is very user-friendly, and I learned it 5 minutes or less. We will be updating the Somos Uno We Are One website shortly, but until that time, please enjoy all the possibilities that ATube offers. And don't forget, we have a huge variety of articles at Somos Uno We Are One and music files at the website for you to explore. Now, people say that we let the genie out of the bottle with the first atomic explosion test and subsequent explosions of atom and hydrogen bombs. I posited in our last podcast, and I am further developing this thesis today, that we also let the genie out of the bottle through the discovery and uncovering of the hidden words of Jesus in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the scrolls at Qumran, which occurred at the same time, 1947. These powerfully spiritual words also resounded throughout the cosmos, after having been hidden by the Catholic Church since 400 of the Common Era, and then after their discovery continued to be repressed, hidden, and sometimes destroyed by the Catholic and Christian churches and denominations. Many pieces of the Dead Sea Scrolls were distributed to scholars all over the world, and the fact is that many Christian scholars have been sitting on these translations for 60 years now and not doing anything with it. Basically, they are just holding back. They don't want this material translated. I am not saying all Christians don't want these books to become available, but the majority do not want these words of Jesus to become part of the Gospels, or what are generally described as the words of Jesus. As you know, this is a spiritual UFO and a spiritual paranormal program. It is not a religious program. You will not hear any attempt to convert you to Christianity or any other religion, although we may speak about other religions and spiritual paths during this or any other podcast of the series. But you will hear us talk to you about and teach you how to use your God-given, incredible, natural powers, powers which are more powerful than the mightiest weapons of Earth governments and extraterrestrial visitors. We teach that we must focus on a new vision for the future, but we do not bury our heads in the sand. We believe that being informed is absolutely necessary. Just as there were many Jewish people in the 1930s who heard about what Hitler was planning, but they chose to be and remain in denial about the approaching reality, and they chose not to emigrate. We do not want to be sitting ducks for the government or any wicked alien forces. The same situation played itself out during the Bosnian-Serbian War, when Serbia ruthlessly attacked the Bosnians. I had a Bosnian friend who often warned her friends that war was coming and that they all should leave their homes and move to Germany, Turkey, or the United States, or other countries. Almost every day over coffee, she would tell her friends, "Wake up, look what's going on around you. It's time for us all to move." Well, only she and her family moved. They are here in the United States now, and only she and her family lived. We must learn a powerful lesson from this. Now, Philip Corso wrote the book The Day After Roswell, along with Burns. Burns is a fantastic writer, a brilliant man. Philip Corso was a retired colonel. He witnessed one of the alien bodies being removed during the Roswell crash in '47. He was also a member of the National Security Council under President Dwight Eisenhower, and in the Army's Research and Development Council. On the outside, he did his research, quote unquote, but on the inside he held the most powerful documents and information on the Roswell crash. So I wanted to read to you some amazing quotes that I think just might surprise you. First, I'm going to read the quote, and then I'm going to tell you who said it. Okay, first quote. "Extraterrestrial contact is a real phenomenon. The Vatican is receiving much information about extraterrestrials and their contacts with humans from its nuncios, embassies in various countries, such as Mexico, Chile, and Venezuela." Who said that? Monsignor Corrado Balducci, as stated 5 different times on Italian television. Vatican theologian, insider, close to the Pope, Monsignor Balducci said that he was on a Vatican commission looking into extraterrestrial encounters and how to cope with the emerging general realization of extraterrestrial contact. Well, I kind of gave that one away when I mentioned Vatican, but let's go to the next one. We must insist upon full access to discs recovered. For instance, in one case, the Army grabbed it and would not let us have it for cursory examination. Who said that? J. Edgar Hoover. Next, I am convinced that these objects do exist and that they are not manufactured by any nations on earth. That was said by Air Chief Marshal Lord Dowding. He is the Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Air Force Fighter Command. Now, an outpouring of UFO reports, which forces response in high places, particularly when unknowns virtually blitzed the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. An Air Force intelligence analysis also concluded that UFOs were interplanetary spaceships. And this was in 1952. Next quote. The UFO phenomenon being reported is something real and not visionary or fictitious. Who said that? General Nathan Twining, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, from 55 to 58. Next, unknown objects are operating under intelligent control. It is imperative that we learn where UFOs come from and what their purpose is. I can tell you, behind the scenes, high-ranking military officers are soberly concerned about the UFOs. Who said that? Admiral Roscoe Hillenkotter, the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency. Now this one I'm going to give away right away. It's an astonishing statement by General Douglas MacArthur, who said that, quote, the next war will be an interplanetary war. The nations of the earth must someday make a common front against attack by people from other planets. The politics of the future will be cosmic or interplanetary, unquote. He said this in 1955, and UFOs were definitely a perceived threat at that time by the military. There has been no cover-up. I don't know why people talk about a cover-up when some of the highest-ranking military men, when presidents, when people running the most powerful secret agencies in the United States and in other countries are coming forth and stating that UFOs are real. You cannot speak of a cover-up. And this was not just back in the 50s, but this has been happening in the last decade. Again, as I said before about the Jewish denial and the Bosnian denial, if anyone continues to speak of a cover-up, then they are only perpetuating the idea that it is better to bury your head in the sand than to stand and face what is going on around you. According to Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso, retired, The objects found in the crashed UFO have produced many so-called discoveries that we benefit from today, such as integrated chips and lasers. Certain UFO intelligences are perceived today, not just back in the 50s, but today, as enemies. I hold that we are not only in danger from visitors from other places in the universe and other universes, but from visitors who came and stayed on planet Earth and who have entrenched themselves in power here on our planet. We are developing brain interfaces for pilots to pilot their aircraft with only their thoughts. These interfaces are also being used for people who are paraplegics. Already we have helmets for pilots that respond simply to eye movements of the pilots. They can actually fire missiles simply through their eye movements. These are functional and in use right now. I wanted to mention to you that the 2012 International UFO Congress is starting to announce speakers and other information, so I would get ready to attend. Here's an initial list of some of the speakers who will be at the 2012 International UFO Congress. More speakers will be announced soon, starting with General Ricardo Bermudez, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, Whitley Strieber, Dr. Stephen Greer, Ben Hansen, Rosemarie Ellen Guiley, Colin Andrews, David Hatcher Childress, very fascinating person, read his books, Yvonne Smith, Lee Spiegel, Roberto Pinotti, Randall Nickerson. Now for some news. An unidentified flying object was reported above Shanghai and Beijing at the same time on August 20. The quote, colossal unidentified glowing ball was first sighted around 9 p.m. last Saturday above Shanghai by a Chinese civil aviation pilot flying China Southern Airlines flight CZ655 from Shanghai to Changchun. The pilot, nicknamed in his email as, quote, the girl picking mushroom 168, unquote, on the internet, reported the incident via Weibo and described it as a shocking experience. He says, quote, the object expanded from small to large and was spherical in shape. It was hundreds of times larger than the moon, and its diameter seemed to reach 50 miles, 92.6 kilometers, unquote, the pilot wrote on Weibo. The pilot added that the UFO faded gradually after hovering above Shanghai for about 20 minutes. The girl picking mushroom 168 was not the only one to spot the UFO. According to the East China Air Traffic Control Bureau, its air control department received reports from several pilots on August 20 about the UFO. Quote, based on their descriptions, the glowing object was far away from the airplanes and posed no danger to flight safety and civil aviation. East China Air Traffic Control Bureau told the press, and I'm sure they were forced to tell the press, that some 1,500 kilometers north of Shanghai, several amateur astronomers said that they spotted a, quote, bubble-like object, unquote, above the suburbs of Beijing during a stargazing event around the same time on August 20. Ma Jing, an engineer with the National Astronomical Observatories, told Shanghai Daily that he took a set of pictures showing the object rising from the west like, quote, an expanding round white cloud, unquote, but that the object disappeared several minutes later. An anonymous expert from Shanghai UFO Research Center said that the UFO could be the fragment of a satellite launched by Russia 2 days earlier. China News Service reported that a Russian communications satellite, the Express AM-4, disappeared after takeoff on the morning of August 18. Back to Roswell. There has been an artist rendition of the Roswell craft, a very detailed painting, as well as a model of the craft. These renditions are so detailed that it is possible to build these craft again. This craft was a time traveler, controlled by the mind. Now really, we have not evolved as a species yet. We maybe are not killing people in the Colosseum as the Romans did, but we have our Abu Ghraibs all over the world. And we also have our World Wrestling Federation and those strange cage fighting shows that are on cable television every week. We love blood and violence. And we also love simulated blood and violence. So, how did that saucer propel itself? I already mentioned that it was a time machine. The visitor's guidance system, the EB's guidance system, was through remote viewing. The pilot remote views his or her landing site first. He also may send a representation of him or herself to the destination. Now, I had the honor of meeting one of the world's most renowned remote viewers in Israel. It was a woman, and she had just emigrated from the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union was asking her to do really terrible things with the remote viewing. And so she left and moved with her daughter to Israel. I'm not going to give any more details because I do not want her identified. What was truly amazing, though, is that she said once that she got to Israel, she was contacted by a very famous world power that offered her literally a fortune to come work for them. However, when the work was explained to her again, she quickly realized that the work was an abomination. Truly horrible things they wanted her to do, and she flatly refused them. And I give this woman tremendous credit, because she was working long hours every day to support her child in a small flat in Israel, when she could have been making probably millions of dollars, but she would not do something evil and wrong with her amazing remote viewing abilities. She also had the ability to see what would happen in a person's future. And after a while, I just could not resist. And I asked her, please, can you tell me what happens to me? She looked at me carefully, long and hard, and said, no, I am not going to tell what your future is going to be. So why are UFOs always seemingly the right size? In other words, why do they fit our density? The reason is because the density of our planet is known. The Roswell ship was able to match the density of the planet it is flying through, namely, in that case, planet Earth. But something went wrong. Now, the skin of the ship had 6 layers. We speak about the skin of a ship, or we use the term the skin of a plane to refer to what goes over the frame of an aircraft. But in the case of the Roswell UFO and other UFOs, the skin is truly skin. It is living biology. The new B-2 bomber has anti-gravity devices built into the wings. That is why they will not let you get near the wings of the B-2 bomber. Now, we directly affect our planet by the way we think. We need to think in auspicious ways. We need to think outside the box. God, or the ultimate reality, would not create any of us less than himself. Would any of us want our children to be less than us? Now, there is just what is known as the field. When the field is weak, we used to call this the ether. When it is strong, we call this matter. Read the works of Greg Braden. He goes into the field in depth. Also, read Lynn McTaggart, Bruce Lipton, who helps you use the field to help you heal yourself and live longer. And of course, please read the founder of all this, the one who discovered the morphogenetic field, the great Rupert Sheldrake, who is still doing remarkable experiments and writing great books. Now, I mentioned some films that have been coming out during the summer. Peter Travers of the Rolling Stone says that you're crazy if you think Cowboys and Aliens, the new movie starring Harrison Ford, the Indiana Jones Ford, and Daniel James Bond Craig, is any good. He says the film in which aliens invade the Old West has a clever premise and most nice moments, but it's mostly just shooting blanks. he's a lot more excited about a film called Attack the Block. It's a British action film by director Joe Cornish. It's also an alien invasion movie, but Cornish's plot, in which extraterrestrials face off against gangbangers in the projects of London, goes to places the wussy, overly mushy cowboys and Indians can't go with its PG-13 rating. Non-locality. Let's just say a few words about that. If all of us at one moment prior to time were all one, because we were all in the singularity, the Big Bang, and we realize we were all in that moment when the Big Bang happened, but then we expanded into multiple universes. If an influence in one dimension happens, it influences another dimension. Now stay with me for a moment on this, because I'm going to give you something special here. So, all this talk about sin in the past from various religions, karma, and so forth, maybe what is really happening is that we are having a dialogue with ourselves in another dimension. Frequently people say that some of the aliens are only us visiting ourselves from the future. Well, let's go on with this. If you feel less than or inferior, where does that come from? Can we contact ourself somewhere where we do not feel inferior? Of course we can. Why do we feel bad and that we've made wrong choices in our lives? Maybe we haven't made wrong choices in our other lives in other dimensions. So therefore, we must start listening to our intuitions so that we stop making wrong choices, and we can start making the right choices in our lives. Our intuition will tell us what to do. Also, meditation. Let me give you a technique. Now, something that I'm going to say is going to sound weird, but if you are a fan of this show, you are an open-minded person. First, sit down on the floor in a comfortable place, in the lotus posture, or the half lotus posture if you can. Close your eyes. Place the tip of your tongue onto the roof of your mouth, or on what they call the soft palate. So you have to move your tongue back a little ways, not so close to where your front teeth are, but move your tongue back to where you feel a softness, where that rigid part of your mouth becomes smooth. So press the tip of your tongue against that place called the soft palate. Now, what you've done by that is you have closed off that energy circuit above. After doing this, we must close off the energy circuit below. You must tighten the muscles of your sphincter. If you don't know what this is, these are your, forgive the expression, asshole muscles. Okay? You must tighten these muscles and hold them closed. Thereby you have now made yourself a time-traveling vehicle, a dimensional traveling vehicle, completely self-contained, ready to be directed to multiple dimensions and to meet the version of yourself that has not screwed up. This ends our transmission for today. We will be in contact soon.